Jazz is characterized by long solos, long intros, long whatever you can think of when it comes to jazz music. And we just felt that if we're going to extend the song, you might end up missing a lot of what we're going to be talking about this evening. We did mention that this evening is going to be a great one. And of course, we joined in studios here with the legendary and the great Mr. Gerin Lovu. You know, so it's not every day that you have a beautiful guest, but this evening it was important for us to be joined by this such, great personality. And of course, we're in great conversation with Muput Gary. He's a heavy name in and around East London, especially relating to the creative ecosystem. Some know him as a lecturer at UFH, University of Water Music Department, but some know him as someone who's wearing another hat. There's probably 1,000 hats. He wasn't just in one day. And of course, this evening we're talking media and the entire creative ecosystem and the spin-offs thereof. So let's welcome this legend, Molo Putkeri Kunjan.
Hello, hi.
I hear you. Yeah.
How you doing? Yeah. I do may wear a couple of hats, but I'm so lucky to be and excited to be here. And I never thought I'd get invited to your show, Zuko. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Of course, we needed to wait for a great moment to really invite you and bring you so that we could really have some great moment and extensive time to reflect on so many things and to delve deep into the entire cracks of the matter.
Yeah.
So but again, as we were just talking, just before the show started, you had some beautiful reflections on the entire sound of the music that you played, how clear and how relevant the sound still is, even to this day. And this music was recorded way back.
Yeah.
And to those that do not know, like I said, he's wearing so many hats. He's still going to tell us more about himself. But any reflections to South African jazz before we can delve into the whole basis of why we're here?
Well, I'm pretty excited. Let's just find out for the people listening. Can you hear us clearly? I just think we're seeing some notes here that there's no sound.
I also see that, but everything to me here seems to be done right, and
Okay.
I hope we can get some responses.
I think so. Let's just make sure that they can hear us.
So if they don't, I'm sure they'll still send some messages so that we can see.
Yeah. So my reflections for SHS, I think where we are now, we've reached a point where we are confident about what South African jazz is. I think we're now even having more explorations as to spirituality. At first, it was musicality. Now you're moving deeper into another plane that says, how do we own a South African sound with our music? I come from an old school approach. So when you're listening like Moses' song that played before and the Yuma Sigela, you can appreciate how clean the sound was. As a If it was a drum, it was a drum kit,
Yeah.
added artifacts. But now the multitude of technology, what technology can do for us now, you can actually layer live instruments and come up with very interesting sounds. But what I like is that we are starting to own our space as South Africans, and we're starting to own our music. There's a South African sound that is not the common 145.
Yeah.
It's real jazz, but it's still South African.
No, thanks for those reflections and inputs to the South African jazz. And of course, some questions are emanating as you are starting to really unpack in terms of how you perceive it, in terms of how you engage, the sound. I don't want to say as this or that because you're still going to tell us, and I still want to allow you to really tell us how you'd want to, define yourself, because you've been defined, in many ways by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes that those definitions sometimes can be problematic because, and to a great extent, they're not necessarily who and how you'd want to be, defined. So here now, we're just, giving you a moment to really tell the listeners and the viewers, wherever they are, how and who you'd want to be,
Defined.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite hard in that every definition of me is part of my history. It's a journey that has been traveled in the last 20 to 25 years.
Yeah.
So so I try to think about it, and I think I came up with one encompassing word, a media solution architect.
Okay.
But from a background point of view, I'm an associate music lecturer at the University of Forte for music technology. Shout out to Forte.
Yeah.
I'm a professional sound engineer. I think I've worked with such amazing artists in my journey, still do. I'm a music producer. I'm a music studio owner. I'm a music business administrator.
Yeah.
I'm a media coach. I'm a mentor. I'm a digital broadcaster as well, a live streamer. I'm an arts educator. There's quite a lot. I wear many caps. I'm a mentor. I'm a facilitator. I'm a research and develop. I do research and development, especially into the policies that are in the Eastern Cape for both music and film. I'm a founder of Multimedia Works, which has now taken over a space called Legends, which is a creative incubator.
Yeah.
Where we thrive in teaching employable skills within the creative industry.
Yeah.
We have a music school there. We've got a performance venue. I'm a father. I think that's very important. I'm a family man. There's a lot. It's just the journey. So how you want to define me, it tells me where we met in the journey.
Yeah.
Of my life. But I'm very passionate about the development of the creative sector.
Yeah.
Very passionate about the development actually of the Eastern Cape. I don't want to make it broad, because if Eastern Cape problems can be solved, we've solved Africa's problems. I'd like to believe that.
Yeah.
So I'm an experimenter. I'm a risk taker. I can sacrifice for the sake of development.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited at where the journey, God willing, will take me further. But I think I'm at a space where experimentation and putting ideas into practice that can really change the landscape of how the Eastern Cape develops in terms of music. And I can safely say in how Africa can develop within the music space to create sustainable livelihoods for musicians and artists, but for music practitioners and the value chain around this thing. So I'm really interested in seeing how the next few years will pan out and creating pilot studies to see how those pilots are going to go out and work. So my definition of myself, maybe media solutions architect, because I'm coming up with solutions within the media space.
Yeah.
But I'm also throwing up new ideas and putting them into practice. We'll see how that infrastructure works within the framework of the development of music.
Yeah. Man, thanks for really highlighting that, and for also just unpacking how this whole, um, idea that, gleans from who you are and the works that you do, and how also you engage with the solutions. I think more than anything to me is really how you engage with the problems and then responding with relevant, situations, in the areas of media, in the areas of music. You just mentioned one of the most important things, the educational, output that you just mentioned, that now you're heading a space, Legends Creative Hub, where there's a music school to sort of respond to whatever gaps there are, but more than anything to try to imagine a society that has, all the solutions, that respond to questions that many people, have. I think to me, more than anything, is what really matters, or maybe the only thing that brought us here, or, meant that we should have this conversation, because more than anything, life is just about asking questions.
Yep.
But sometimes, if we ask questions, but there are no responses, because the reason that we ask questions is so that we can be, assisted, and how we assisted is just, just how far can those responses, be relevant to the questions we're asking. And you just putting yourself, and also what I'm just gathering, in how you would want to be defined, or how you define yourself, is how evolving you are as a being. And you make a very strong emphasis that it really depends on where you met me and the works I'm doing at the time. And meaning that you just, succumbing to this whole idea of fluidity as a person,
Yeah.
in terms of evolution and transformation. And how's that been, for you, especially in the Eastern Cape? Because I'm of the opinion that, and the fact that you've been around the space. I mean, I remember meeting you, I think it was around 2012 or 2013, somewhere there.
Yep.
And that was the first time I encountered you. We're doing some studio recording. And can you please take us through that?
Eastern Cape, not shout out to Forte. I'm very proud that I made a decision in 2000 to come to a space called University in Alice, and I always share a joke and say the marketing was so good. I thought Alice, there's an ocean next to Alice. So when the bus dropped me off at Digeni, I literally was shocked that there's this university in the middle of a village, and then there's a place called the Monument. My first day, I went up to the Monument thinking I'll have a view of the ocean, but I had a beautiful view of the Hawksback Mountains and Dengwaleni, somewhere at the bottom of the Fortier Farms. And I asked myself, where's the ocean? Because what attracted me to the Eastern Cape, actually, Fortier, was that I was going to be closer to the ocean.
Yeah.
But little did I know that destiny would make me fall in love with the Eastern Cape. So I set foot in the Eastern Cape. I'm not born in the Eastern Cape, but I set foot in 2000. And I'm still here. I mean, Eastern Cape has a lot of history for me. It's where I studied, whether it's Forte, whether it's Rhodes. It's where I got scholarships to go abroad to Germany to further my studies in music production.
Yeah.
Got my master's there. My first job after I got my master's was waiting for me at the prestigious Miriam Makeba Center. I was one of the first sound engineers there. And I spent my time there, and I rose up the ranks only to leave. We met 2011 because I left in 2012.
Yeah.
Only to leave in 2012 because I had fallen in love with an Eastern Cape I think could be sustainable. So people are like, no, with your skills, why don't you go to Cape Town, to Joburg, to Durban? No, with my skills, why can't I impart them in the Eastern Cape and create more people that can allow us to compete in the space. And with competition, we create quality. With quality, we curate better, and we're able to build an audience. I really think when it comes to development, everyone plays a role. So when people think about the music industry, they want to focus on the artists, but I think there's an audience there that needs to be developed to match the artists. I believe there's organizations that should come in so that they are able to facilitate the livelihoods of the audience and the artists. When I say companies, you've got companies that make drinks. I'm not allowed liquor companies. There is other types of forms, transport companies, accommodation. There's all other businesses that can fall around an idea of an inclusive, creative province or creative city or wherever you are. But if we are thinking that way, I really saw opportunity in the Eastern Cape. When you go to a space that is already saturated with a lot of creatives, when you raise your hand up, no one is going to see you. But if you're in a space where there isn't a lot of creatives that are pushing the agenda, if you raise your hand, you stick out like a sore thumb. So I realized that staying in the Eastern Cape is actually more of a blessing than trying to go fight 100 other amazing creatives out there in another space and not be able to achieve. So I realized an opportunity and I decided not to leave the Eastern Cape. And I'm thankful to God because He's the only reason why I think I am at a place where I am happy to live my dream and to live my life. I don't have to ask anyone permission to become who I am or to become the person that I'm supposed to be. So I'm living in a space where I'm comfortable, but also I can see I have a lot to grow. I like your word, which says evolve. I'm still evolving, and there's new connections and new networks and new ideas that I think I'm yet to see, and we can establish a greater entities or greater establishments within the Eastern Cape that can make us really the mecca of, and I'm saying with respects to the Muslim, but can make us the mecca of creative business and be attractive to the whole of the world.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And perhaps extending to this conversation, do you get a sense that maybe, because remember, a lot of people when they grow up, especially creatives, they want to be in big cities because this is where everything thrives, especially in Joburg. Everyone, from the Eastern Cape, dreams of going there. But not only from the Eastern Cape, I mean, we also see, people would go and study, especially in the jazz, space. They would go to like Cape Town, UCT, study there. But we find them, that they will still, find their way to Joburg. We find people, in UKZN, and they still, find their way to Joburg because the opportunities there. Now, your situation, would you describe it as a situation of someone who really saw something that a lot of people, often overlook in the province, or perhaps it was more of a situation where you were willing to take risks, where you were willing to take a longer route, but knowing that eventually it would land you in rather, a great position where you are able to execute your plan in the right way you really want it to be carried out?
Well, it's even moving to Joburg is a risk. So staying is a risk, moving is a risk. Historically, you have the value chain more functional in those spaces. You have more value chain, but then you're sitting with a space such as the Eastern Cape where there's amazing writers, amazing musicians, and but they are not here in the Eastern Cape. So I had a few questions to ask myself. Do I really have to leave? The answer was yeah, if you want to get there fast. But you know, one thing about a journey is if you want to get there fast, you go alone. And this is the reflections I get from friends from Joburg, that it's a lonely space. You cannot trust anyone. The element of community is short lived.
Yeah.
And but we have a slow we are moving slower here, but we have everything. You have collegiality, you have camaraderie here, you got
Yeah.
people that are willing to walk with you, you got people that have dreams that uh, need each other to facilitate.
Yeah.
Things may not be moving fast, but you know what, the world has changed from 2000 when I've arrived,
Yeah.
and now we're in 2023. The playing field is becoming more even. I think
Yeah.
more artists need to be in the Eastern Cape for them to actually succeed. And I also subscribe with wisdom that it's a jazz artist, Bono from U2. He said if a person can have 100, just 100 people that um, are going to support his dream, are going to buy his merchandise, buy his music,
Yeah.
attend his shows, just 100 good people, that person is going to live a great life as a musician. So that challenged me to say, can we not build our own circles of 100
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
and see how those 100 people can sustain your whole livelihood as a musician? Because the reality is, musicians, and I'm going to challenge a few that are listening, is that we see ourselves as musicians, but I've been preaching the gospel of you're a businessman who does music. The moment you shift the mindset of who you are, it changes your approach and the space that you are. When you think of the business of music within the Eastern Cape is different from thinking as a musician within the Eastern Cape, because now as a business person, you have to think about what networks you're going to have. You have to think about what platforms are available for you. You have to think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
how, your marketing strategies, your delivery, how you perfect your craft. So it's for me staying, and
Yeah.
was the staying power of the Eastern Cape is that there's more gold within the creative space in the Eastern Cape. And in Joburg, there's just a processing plant. So why do
Yeah.
I not rush to the processing plant when we can actually mine our gold and then start thinking about how we want to process it in our space? It has more value. Also, it's how we value where we are. The,
Yeah.
the exodus of moving from one place to the other in this, and everyone lives saying I'm chasing ipupa, but I'm
Yeah.
like, man, you don't have to dream at home. You're at home. So
Yeah.
what can you do at home? So chasing the dream versus chasing what you can do can create a lot of things. You should know by now that the issues of mental health,
Yeah.
social wellness, behavioral things, they, when people leave the spaces that is homed from to them and go elsewhere, those things start becoming an issue, and then
Yeah.
people fall into addictions and etc. because they're trying to run away from the challenges they hope they'll find solutions for
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
space like Joburg
Yeah.
and Cape Town.
Just to step you a bit, I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Just looking into how, COVID became a hurricane to sort of, catalyze the whole movement that would then result into people emigrating. And I'm not going to mention names here. We started seeing a lot of people emigrating back to their roots, some finding some nice niches. And, we've had people say, great doctors, how East London, as a metro is very conducive for anyone who really wants to, study, for anyone who wants to try out, something new and trade at a global level, but in a very, small space that is very enabling. And I'm just listening to really, how you are unpacking this whole thing, and how home is safe to such an extent that there's really some problems that one could avoid by simply staying home, but still operating at a global stage while being home. And if we look into this immigration process that is taking place in
Don't forget to make us green. Wonderful.
We're back again. We just apologize for that load shedding times in South Africa, and we are always reminded that the struggle continues. We're just having a beautiful conversation, and reflecting on so many things, especially about how beautiful the province is and the offerings it has and opportunities, that many times we often, ignore or overlook because we've been here for quite some time. But Mr. Gil was just making a very beautiful, reflections and pointers that are really, encouraging and, telling us to look further to search for the solutions that, are at the palm of our hand. And he made some beautiful reflections, and we're just, touching on how also the COVID times reminded us, of the things that we have, but we did not even, prioritized, in terms of really, using them and maximizing. And he's telling us that we almost have everything we have. And my question really goes into the media and the power of the media in terms of really equating us, to the global stage or the global arena, should I say.
So COVID exposed the industry in a good way and a bad way. Let me start with the bad. The bad, we realized that gatekeepers just lost their keys. And the good way is that everyone now had access to do something amazing. So for me, COVID grew my agenda 100-fold. And I'm kidding not. I think I really emancipated a lot, actually riding on the shoulders of people like Keith Casey himself.
Yeah.
I really went leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
In realizing how the media space shifted to a point that anybody had access. I mean, the technology 3 years after COVID now, we're living in a space of AI, and if we don't jump into that space, we're going to stay behind. So there are amazing things that COVID exposed. Respect to anyone that lost a loved one. But in terms of the industry, now somebody realized I can be at home and still be able to collaborate and work. I can do my part in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And have a studio finalize it in Joburg. Now we have technologies that we can be recording in East London, somebody is in Dublin, another person is in Los Angeles, and you're all recording at the same time within the same project. That's COVID accelerated how we connect with one another. That means we didn't have to be at a particular location to be effective. But also it proved what we've been saying all along. Home is the place to be. So with artists coming back home, and the unfortunate thing is others came with their brands and they wanted to manipulate the system for personal gain and contact with their brand, and to come back with the mentality to say, let me be part of a product development. I don't know names.
To build with people.
So their brands helped them for a few months.
Yeah.
And the longer COVID went forward, everyone was at an equal playing field. But the playing field is not as equal.
Yeah.
But it's more equal than it was before COVID. And now there's opportunities that people should be stepping into. And one of those opportunities is what I'm doing for my PhD studies, which is platform-based development. We can change how we fund the Eastern Cape so that we can have more music being made versus looking at funding an individual, and that development ends with the individual. So there's a better outlook now in how we can work with each other. So for me, I want to look at COVID as an opportunity that was all thrown to the industry for everybody.
Do you earlier on you mentioned something about the potency of the industries that the metro has. being the automotive industry. I mean, we have the biggest plants, like of Mercedes Benz, and C-Class being made in the Eastern Cape and then being shipped, all around the world. And again, I mean, we having a diamond, processing company at, at ITZ, and we have, the oceans economy that is less exploited, and to some extent, we can say that Islam is a university town because of the two big institutions that the metro has. Is it when we're looking into that, what could be done perhaps to sort of unlock the entire creative ecosystem with the economies thereof? Because I'm just looking, for example, and still not too far from here, you have the entire chamber that controls the entire ecosystem of the Eastern Cape, Bisho, where the parliament is for the province, and where treasury and the economy is being controlled. And looking into these nodes, and is there something perhaps that needs to be done to sort of activate the creative ecosystem to its full potential?
Yeah, yeah. What an interesting question. let me just give me a few seconds. Okay, let me approach your answer this way. We just have to industrialize the creative sector. Industries create products, product goes to market. If we've been focusing on the product for so long, just but we have not been creating an industry as to how do we create more of the songs or allow people to have ability or access to be able to churn out the product more. Or product could be curations, product could be productions, product could be shows, product could be the music, product could be digital artworks, and we can industrialize the creative sector. But that calls to, as presented in the at Makanda during the National Arts Festival, that it all boils down to policy. I still don't understand when politicians can sit and say, we have the best artists, we have ABC, our creative sector is booming, but when it comes to budgeting, we're the last ones, we're at the bottom. So that social development, health, etc., and whatever is left over is thrown into what the people can do naturally. Like creativity and art in the Eastern Cape comes naturally, but because we've not industrialized it, it doesn't have value. We speak of billions at the diamond, but we have how many people? 8 million people in the Eastern Cape that are creative. That already is worth more than billions, but we're not industrializing the creative sector. So I would say the one thing we need to do, and Joburg has kind of got there earlier, but they're not as industrialized. They're now working on if it's not broken, you need to fix it. They have I call them formulas. This is why you go to Joburg, you have the sound of Solid Soul, you have the sound of something studios, you have the sound of people have come up with identities as but those are just products on the shelves. But once we focus on the industrialization of the creative sector, that is a different mind changing. It's mind changing. And that speaks to policy. That speaks to creating music as an experience.
And if I can just come in, as you are, as we're deliberating on this whole, thing with its challenges, of course, and looking into policies, as in an agenda of this, whole thing, that would we imagine, as transformation, into the creative economies, especially relating to the music and the media being the driver. So, I mean, I won't mention which institution I was dealing with or department I was dealing with. And I remember this guy calling me. They wanted code for something else. And then as I was, entertaining them with my time, and then they told me that for what I was quoting, it was irrelevant because the threshold, whatever category, was that much.
Yeah.
And then I had to tell them that, look, you're saying this, but this product that you are inquiring about cost this much still here, but for this client, and you're not even offering, 50%. It's not even 40% of what, you know, I asked for, and those people did not have problem, paying for that. So again, and the reason I think perhaps it's going to be, a point, in which we are centering, the policies, because now you start realizing that, the institutions that are channeling, all the enabling systems, finances, platforms, and whatnot, they are guided by policies that to some extent are irrelevant. And now you are touching on the importance of these policies and how perhaps they need to reflect the reality, of the industry itself, and how can we, maybe look into these policies and what can be done, in order to, have an industry that, is fair, an industry that is better, an industry that has deliverables that, are relevant to the offering itself.
All right. Let's start. Let's just backtrack. For those that do not know what policy is,
Yeah.
policy are the guidelines on how government has to function. So if there's no guideline on how to fund artists, there won't be a proper funding system, which is one of the failures we have with with, with most provinces,
Yeah.
actually everywhere, is
Yeah.
that there hasn't been well thought out on how government deals with with
Yeah.
with us. The second issue with the government that is solving our problems within the creative space, I always ask this question wherever I go: how did you know what program artists needed? Then they tell me they sit down and state an indaba, etc. And I ask the following facts: how many artists are in the province? Where are they? What
Yeah.
do they do? They can't answer that. So how do you then come up with a solution for a constituency that you do not know exists?
That is not represented. Even.
So whom are you representing? So
Yeah.
they are vocal people that benefit from the system, because government sees 30 people and assumes there's 30 people are the voices of 8 million people if we're speaking about our beautiful province, the Eastern Cape. So I'd say policy, the first thing in the policy should be, let's do a head count about all, let's get to know our Eastern Cape. There's something called asset-based community development. I want to introduce a concept, asset-based industry development. Let's count who are the musicians, who are the people within the creative sector. Let's know where they are. Let's see what numbers they are. If a space like Ntata has 100 songwriters and a space like East London is 100 producers, it tells us we need to develop producers way in Ntata, or we need to export songwriters into East London for us to come up with a better product. We don't have information that allows us to make better decisions about our creative economy. And economy is important. We all want money.
Yeah.
We really want to make a living out of this, but better still, we want to do what we love until the day we die, without being worried about how to get access to the platforms to do whatever we want. So within any policy structure, the first thing will be, let's count the assets. How many spaces are there? How many community halls are there?
Yeah.
How many restaurants are there? How many taverns are there? How many churches are there?
Yeah.
How many museums are there? How many galleries are there? Or how many alternative spaces are there within the province? Once the policy says let's do a count, then we look at other avenues of governments like Stats SA to go and do this census for us. But then it feeds into within the policy framework that we have.
Yeah.
So that is number one is the policy. And number two is to understand the environment. So we're creating an asset register. So the policy can inform how the second step. Without the policy, we can't do the second step. But there's 18 wonderful steps that we can speak about today, but we'll just touch on them. But I want people to shift from thinking that this is a one person can do it. Artists must stand up. Artists must be politically minded.
Yeah.
They must attend IDPs and raise their hands and say, "We'd like a policy change with regards to the creative sector." There must be drivers. They must create a massive event, a concert where they're going to come together and say, "We want a functional province that deals and will respond to the actual needs of the artists, a province that knows who we are, a country that appreciates our diverse backgrounds, a country that knows where we are, and a country that then responds to the needs that we are, because every area is different. There's a street economy for music, there is a location economy of music, there's a village economy for music, there's a town economy, a city, there's a nightlife economy for music. So, and all these things can become great contributors within the GDP. So if the issue is where can we get money within the Eastern Cape, or how can we attract people within the Eastern Cape, once we understand our assets, we get to the point that I'm trying to drive now, is then we know what our value is. The issue that why artists migrate and leave their home is that they feel their value can be realized elsewhere. But if you're gold here, it won't stop
you wouldn't have to leave.
Yeah, you're still gold elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that it's a value system. How do you value yourself and value your art form?
Yeah.
Is then going to start creating a lot of things around this space.
Just reflecting, on the history, of this country, especially relating to policies. Or would you then say we pair policies, especially relating to the arts industry or the creative sector? That's one area that perhaps was not reconciled. When everything, we could talk about the politics of other things, but for the sake of time and really what we are dealing with here, we'd rather focus, on the creative sector. And would you then say that it was, I don't want to say maybe it was compromised or anything, but it still needs some work, done on?
I think with attaining freedom in the country, people were fighting for land, they were fighting for opportunities, but they were singing it throughout the whole Savannah. So they used music, they used the creative sector, they used it to drive their intentions for getting land. And when we got our freedom, they started focusing on social welfare, on land, and people stopped singing. After we attained our freedom, the music stopped. I'm just using a broader narrative to say, hello, what if we sang ourselves into the new democracy and continued singing that we found our freedom, this music has helped us? They would have started by saying, let this music be the first thing that we need. So that if we have to effect change in anything,
it should be driven through music.
And want anything changed, it must be done through music. So music stopped being the language of change, and dialogue became the language of change. So now when you want anything done, we have beautiful names, Indaba or something, etc. People want to dialogue. But when we're fostering change or effecting it, actually, it was done through music. And I'm using this analogy to say the government must reprioritize how our freedom was communicated. Now music is fighting but it can't fight anymore because everyone wants to talk about it. But when they wanted to change the livelihoods of a whole nation, they sang about it. So, um, value, value system. So, this is my analogy to say we sang our way to freedom when we attended the music died and we talked away into a new future. But
And it was sort of, laid back,
it was
to the
laid back.
tone.
But we not all hope is lost because now we have people like yourself, people like myself, and many other people that can become voices in the dialogue. But the reality is, we need musicians to come together. We need to be a voice that can come and sing together and say, let there be a focus. I mean, some countries like Sweden are maybe corrected. 50% of their GDP comes from
True.
through the creative arts, such that the government gives you a house, gives you food, and all you have to do is to share 50% of your proceeds, which helps another musician. But that economy is
It's thriving.
always
Yeah.
thriving. There's always new music.
Yeah.
People are allowed to be
Yeah.
creative. So I do not know that do we think that the value of the Eastern Cape is going to be the diamonds or the minerals that we mine up, or is it also the gold that is on the surface, which is the creative art forms that we have?
Yeah. To those who are just joining in, you're listening to Ken R. The program is Jazz Outside the Box, your space for sonic engagements, and we're in conversation with Mr. Kevin Lovo, an entrepreneur in the spaces of media and music. And today, that's all we are engaged in, or that's all we are talking about. And he's just taking us through his journey in the province and what he's seeing, the works, he is doing, and the possibilities, that exist, and possibilities, in which we could leverage and find, ourselves, sorry, and find our ways, of navigating, this our way of existence, especially as creatives. And he's saying a lot of things. And if you engaged, I hope you are really enjoying this beautiful engagement. We're going to play you just a song, and then we'll come back and please share comments. We see you, Mr. Hamza, Bijolo, and we hope we're good with the sound. And then we have a comment from Sabelo Sobeta, and he's saying musicians need to come together. That's true. Our voices can be heard in the creative industry. Uh, Thanks for that, Booty, for that message. And we know you and we know your contributions to the space. Thank you very much. And let's play you a song, and then we're still going to continue with our beautiful engagement. And yeah, let's play you this.
Raise your volume, press the green button. It's not playing. So pick it again. All those things. Play something else.
There's no signal here.
No, it's got nothing to do with you. Your sound is. Let me come out.
we're back again, and you. We hope you're still with us. We're seeing the beautiful messages from you, beautiful people, and yeah. Apologies about the technical glitches that we're experiencing, but we are hoping that you are still um, relaxing wherever you are. You're keeping warm. It's chill. It's a chilly evening, and we're hoping that you are relaxing or unwinding in a very beautiful way, indulging in beautiful jazz music. Whether you're drinking coffee or wine, water, we're just hoping that you're keeping safe and warm. Welcome again, Mr. Lovo. And to those that just joined in, you're listening to Jazz Outside the Box, the space for sonic engagements. And this is your boy, Zuko Yigi. I'm in conversation with the luminary and great um, Dadu Gerin Lovo. He's actually a neighbor. He jumped the whole wall to be here and to just tell you more about him. He's one of the guys that are really contributing a great deal, towards making East London a beautiful creative city. He's a professional sound engineer, and those that know Dumza Maswana, who's going to be playing his concert in East London um, in August. He's the one that recorded his album Live at Legends. I was there. I saw that, and amongst many people at the Guild. Yeah, Live at the Guild. Sorry, not Legends. I do some work for at the Guild, so that's the reason I'm making a mistake. Sorry, I was there, and I mean those that have been attending Carnival and the Lights, and you might have seen him. Those that recorded. At AVC Miriam Makeba Studios around 2010 and 11, and he was there. Those that recorded at the Legends Studios 2011, 2012, 2013, he was there. Those that are recording now at Legends, he's there. So he's really a social and creative ecosystem developer, and we're proud to have him. He's serving. I don't want to say he's running the space. He likes forging his identity. He's really doing an amazing work. In terms of really aiding great inventions in the creative space, the education facet of it, and the entrepreneurial side of it as well. And we are in conversation with Gary Love. And I would really want us to shift our focus a bit and just focus on the importance of the media and how potent the whole thing is towards channeling and driving the entire creative industry further. And what are your thoughts there and
on the media.
on the media and its potency and the potential it has to propel the creative ecosystem.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for the kind words. I see myself right at the back, just serving people within this industry. I think there's more to do. There's more you can lead by serving. So I prefer to call the servant
Yeah.
of many great artists that I've been lucky to be around. The media, I don't know if there's such thing called anything now called mainstream media. This information is now on an overflow.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 3-year-olds now becoming socialites
Yeah.
and becoming popular.
Sorry, is it because of globalization or the entire digitization sphere?
I think it's digitization is allowing convergence. At first, the bridge was too big. It was a big thing to be on radio 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Umuntu wayehlamba nokuhlamba. to go to a place where no one is going to see him.
I hope you did.
I did.
Cool.
I'm still an old soul, so I made sure I took a shower before I came here.
Cool.
But now, what the internet and digitization has done is bringing convergence. So everything is coming together. So the gap between access to your access to the world and not is shrinking. And I can actually prove it to you. Like news channels like CNN.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to say other things.
Let's leave them.
My apologies for that. Major news channels, like the national broadcaster, is moving to the digital space.
Yeah.
Whereas they didn't have to because the competitors that are out there are driving attention. Remember, media is about what is holding the attention of the audience. And there's a lot to learn there. You're going to create a following, an audience. There's a lot to learn. There's a big lesson about that. You're going to develop your audience as an artist. Just see how the media is converging now and trying to win attention. You can use the same methods to win the attention of your audiences to our spaces as well. But let me not go there. Let me stick to media. So the convergence itself is a new opportunity. So we still have people that feel like I need to go to radio. Why? Because transports like cars and our vehicles, they are still reliant on the FM solution. But people have cell phones and headphones and they are listening to digital stations. But those that are driving, and because not many people have cars in the Eastern Cape, and we speak about where we are, radio is still a good opportunity for having your music put out. But also there is a fallacy that says if your music is on radio, you have made it. I do not know what it is, but you made it. So we have people fighting for spaces, but all respect to radio, it's also another platform, like what a stage is, like what the theaters are. All those are just platforms. So I'd say any media is opportunity, but the playing field is getting very close to being very equivalent. So I'm not really worried about media presence now.
Yeah.
Because people seldom even watch TV, the normal broadcast type of TV. They're watching on demand. But what we should be speaking about is what any business will need. Is marketing.
Okay.
If you're good with your marketing resources and tools, media just becomes one of the tools that you use. I see media as a still a privileged marketing tool, but it's no longer as necessary as it was a few years ago.
Okay. You know, sometimes again it draws us back to the issue of policies. And sometimes, for example, when you take a flight from either, Durban, Shaka to Kimpalo, or from Tambo down to Kimpalo, or from Inseria down to Kimpalo, or from, Ekapa down to Kimpalo. And the music that you listen to there does not tell you where you're going, but you're going to some place, whether you're a tourist or you're going home, but there's no sense of culture to which you're going to experience when you go into that space. There's nothing that pulls you towards that certain area you're going to. And again, it boils down to issues of policies. And sometimes when you go to the banks, the music they'd rather play is really so much irrelevant whether you are in the rural towns of the province, Libode, Ngeleni, anywhere you could think of. And the music really does not speak the language of the people that are here, their cultures, their day to day, runnings and dealings. It's it really does not conform to those things. And I'm just highlighting those major things because these, the reason I'm just, mentioning these spaces, it is because they could be the drivers of the creative, industry, especially when we're talking about the music. Yeah. And not necessarily music about musicians from the Eastern Cape, but just the whole industry. If the music that we listen to was the music really about the people or from the people that are from this country. But there seems to be a great gap that does not, respond to our needs. And perhaps, like I said earlier, it brings us again to the issue of policies. And what is it perhaps that could be done to facilitate this world that we envisage that is inclusive, this world that is reflective, of who we are, our cultures, our spirituality, and everything else.
Well, the you know what, maybe we're supposed to be speaking about policy today, and there are 13 indicators of what a thriving music space or area should have. Yeah. And number four is actually respect and celebrate your heritage.
Yeah.
Your heritage. So the issues of you're coming to the Eastern Cape, you should be listening to Mahola and stuff. It
Yeah.
must be a thing that says you're moving into an area where there's a culture that you can explore. It's not within the policy framework. The issues of tourism advantage, it's, it's not in the policy. But we have these departments.
Yeah.
We have these departments, but what is guiding them? So we, I don't even know how many musicians are in the decision making space. Because if a non-musician, if the non-musician, you know, being a music lover and being a music maker,
Yeah.
are two different things. But you know what? Indicator number 3 says we need to get non-music people and music people into a coalition. So
Yeah.
somebody must be able to inform the decision makers that this is how music works,
Yeah.
and this is how we can be helped with how music works. Um, it's kind of sad that policy does not enforce anything to the benefit of the music creators in a particular space. But when you go to Japan,
yeah,
no one is going to speak English to you unless you ask. You're going to see Japanese culture being evoked. You're going to see the beautiful dresses, the beautiful dances, and how majestic their heritage is. When you land, even the airports look like you're in Japan. They don't look like you're in any space. But when you land in South Africa, the airports look like you're in another space, in a different continent. So, where is our identity? I think you're speaking directly to identification, but I also, with due respect, we are not dressed right now. Me and you, we're not dressed like we are people from the Eastern Cape. So
yeah,
so there has been some dilution of our identity, and lip service of what we are is not good enough. But the reality is, instead of looking at what has gone wrong, because I don't like focusing on problems, they're saying, how can we do this right?
yeah,
And we need to have politicians from all the parties starting to tell us how they will have the creative economy or creative industry as part of their program. What will they do if they come into power, or if they are running things to affect the policy changes that can help us develop a media-centric?
yeah. Are we perhaps talking to issues of misrepresentation? And when we are looking into these things, of course, we are reflecting or looking at what should be happening versus what is not happening.
It can't be misrepresentation if the musician wants to become a musician. in the politician
No,
wants to be a politician.
yeah, I'm saying misrepresentation in these key spaces where these decisions, are being made. For example, if the decisions are being made, in places like DISRAC or Parliament, whatever, and then there are less creatives, either as full time, personals, or either as active voices that are consulted when these things need to um, take place.
I'm going to go back to my statement. It cannot be misrepresentation. If the musician, like I said, I'm preaching the gospel that don't be a musician, but be a business person that does music. Don't be a musician, be a politician that facilitates the growth of music. What we have is musicians staying as musicians, and then they go and complain. Government is the biggest stakeholder in any business economy. If the government backs you up, you're going to succeed. But we are the ones going crying foul and say we're not being supported. Why? Because we are becoming musicians. But if we're active politicians in the space, well, we'll be able to have a voice. So it's not misrepresentation. It is the lack of representation. It's the lack of a Zuko Yigi standing up and saying, "I'm going to make sure I'm in parliament to make sure music or the creative sector thrives." So 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 in the past few years, I don't know because it's the worldwide show. This here in South Africa, government then facilitated the formation of a creative federation that is supposed to be the voice of all the musicians and creatives within the country, so that we can come as one voice. I like the notion of having one voice. It worked for Mahatma Gandhi and so forth. But the problem with it in today's space, in that you have 50 other voices speaking for social development, and then they want one voice to speak for musicians. So we are still being leashed or being put in a collar, so that it's like Sbavile. If one person speaks, all the musicians have spoken. I don't think that's a fair. It's a lack of representation. So what we should be driving for is not dealing with government at the top tier level, is making changes within our wards, make sure there's a representation of musicians that are driving changes at ward level, at driving it at council level, within the city, driving it at legislature, provincial legislature level, at district level. And then once we have that build up at provincial level, then we can go to the national level. I'd like to submit that we, as the Eastern Cape, we can isolated from the rest of South Africa. We can have a functional creative economy if we have better representation within the policy and political spaces around the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, look, I'm with you, and thanks for those reflections and deliberations on the matter. And the reason really I've been highlighting this word misrepresentation is simply tied to the key theme, you know, the policies, and them being overhauled or them being made in ways that really speak to the realities, or rather respond to the issues of the creators themselves. And I'm starting to think that if these policies, in essence, were really carved in ways that look, or that, when you are looking into them, you're like, this policy talks to me. This policy was done by someone like me, or someone thinking about me, my livelihood and my existence, as a musician. Then what you just unpacked now, from what level, city level, and then provincial level, and so on and so on, would then be dealt with, and supported by the policies, because where they because the problem now is this: where the musicians should be dealing with the music, they find themselves dealing with the politics of the music.
Yeah.
And by the time they need to get into the space of being creative, they approach the space with so much, bitterness and heaviness. And now music is no longer coming from a place of healing people, but now it's still within the same register of the late Brahu when they were still fighting for freedom, and I find that problematic. Not that musicians should not take a position for fighting for their rights, our rights. Not that we shouldn't do that, and I'm not even excluding myself from that. But I just find the whole idea of fighting for your rights as a human being, problematic. It's more like fighting for self to be included in the human category.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just reflecting, on this, and then I'm like, if these policies, were designed in ways that favor musicians, then musicians wouldn't have to, write from a space of being agitated, from a space of being, angry, and from a space of bitterness, but they would just be dealing with music for what music is.
I think the reality is when you are hungry, and I'm gonna use this word very carefully. Um, you have when you are hungry, you will prostitute your craft. I think I'm old enough to use that word. You prostitute your gift and your craft so that you can get food to eat. This is why the exploitation of the industry is boiling down to the issues of hunger. So my look at this, Zuko, is not an issue of fighting.
Yeah.
Is if there's going to be a policy in social development that can feed hungry people, maybe let's go speak to social development and say, let's come up, please have a policy that speaks to hungry musicians so that they're able to make music without being worried about where they're going to get their food the following day. Hence, the ideas of Sweden is a great example that they have mastered the art of making sure no creative is hungry. They give them studios so that they can create their artworks. And now that's industrialization. They've enabled them to be industrialized and have certain things. So I don't think it's a lack of misrepresentation of fighting. I don't think anyone has ever approached government and said these are the right policies you should be thinking for with regards to this. And I'd like to challenge political parties everywhere in the world to say, have discussions on what the creative economy policies should be that can make sure the artists are fed and are able to thrive in what they do. Then there won't be issues of trying to rationalize if we're fighting. Because the moment you say we are hungry, government says artists are fighting. No, but we are hungry, we're not fighting. We're just telling you we're hungry, but to them, it's now an attack. So, because the policy doesn't exist on how to solve the issues
such issues
of being hungry. So, we have to be deliberate. I mean, we have to be radical. Okay, we can't expect to get a different result by doing the same thing. So, we have been stringing along and singing the same song for quite a while, but we can all sing the chorus, but we now need as somebody like yourself or an artist listening to us to say, you know what, I can write a section of the song so that we stingele chorus ekulayo, mawube neprichinyana apho, let's add tension to it so that people can get excited to the bigger chorus that says we will be able to get an economy that works for us. And I'm just using that analogy to say, as creative as we are, why haven't we found means to effect the decisions made at parliament level? So maybe we now, speaking about media, if media is converging, that means we are very close now on being heard on exactly what we need. So maybe it's finding a better articulate ways to say this is how we are going to push a new agenda of saying, let us create an industrialized, if we're in Eastern Cape, an industrialized music province. Let's have industrial creative zones in every town and city, where an artist who has no access to anything can walk into the space and have access to everything they have to create a product. Why should it be limited to one or two, three, when it can be given to a whole community for them to actually thrive with? So there has to be a shift in thinking, and then we measure and evaluate. So I'm a fan of piloting things.
Yeah.
And you know me, I have a space that is piloting all these ideas.
Yeah.
So when I get to conclusions about what they are doing, I think I'm the first person to really challenge Parliament to say, we have evidence on how the sector can grow, and this is the evidence that we have. Whether we use the one voice system they gave us, or we find other avenues to just challenge them in IDPs or meetings or endeavors.
I see.
I think we are very close now to being able to lift an air like for over 20 years now since independence. Is it 20 years next year? It's over.